Hello, I'm Craig Constantine. Welcome to Pod Talk, short conversations with podcast creators that are not just about podcasting, because I like to take the scenic route. My guest today is Pete Machalek. Welcome, Pete. How are you?
I'm doing great. Hi, Craig.
It's great to see you again. We had, for the longest time, I wasn't super on board team must do pre-calls for shows because I felt like I was pretty good at deciding who to invite and like what to, there's time to talk beforehand and it was going good. Then I realized if you do pre-calls, you get to talk to everybody twice. Now I'm like, everybody has to do a pre-call because I want an extra half an hour of chit chat. So I'm officially on team pre-call, not because I throw people out, but because I love talking to people.
Mm.
So on our pre-call, we were talking about many things. And one of them, which I want to start with today, is about video logging. I personally loathe the word vlog only because it's hard to say and it sounds like blog. So blog and vlog are hard to tell apart.
Mm.
But you, I don't actually recall, I don't know if I scrolled far enough, when you started doing your video log. But tell me a little bit about what you're trying to accomplish inside your video log. And I think that's probably going to lead to like, who is Pete and what does Pete do? But you can go there if you want to too. But what's the onus? What's the intention for creating your bite-sized video logs?
Oh, great. There's a lot to that question. So I co-run a company called Sage Presence, and we are all about building the confident presence of professional folks out there, specifically for professional service firms. And we started vlogging. And sorry, I'm going to use the word vlog because...
No, you can use it. I just trip over it when I say
it. My partner and I started vlogging during COVID. He and I were actually very nervous when COVID hit because historically our business was all about face-to-face communication, face-to-face presence. We're very much about the nonverbal aspect of communication. I mean, that's what most people think of presence as. So we spend a lot of time helping people communicate more effectively, both verbally and non-verbally. Anyway, when COVID hit and everything went virtual, we were pretty darn nervous because historically all of our clientele had been found face-to-face. And then we remembered that, oh yeah, we've got a background in film helping people get comfortable in front of cameras.
Mm-hmm.
So we started focusing on screen presence, and two really cool things happened. The first thing was our existing clients, because everything was camera now, they were asking us for this sort of thing. And the second thing was the limits on who we could consider prospects totally went away. And all of a sudden we were working with folks all over the country. We got our first Canadian client. So it was a very big thing. And we both thought, okay, now that cameras are such a big part of what we're doing, we should start creating a vlog. And so that's what we started doing in, I guess, mid 2000. There are a bunch that we did that are no longer available because we didn't love our backgrounds. This background that I have right now is a product of a vendor of ours called Mood Modular, and this company does this fantastic job of helping you create background. Oh,
because if anybody knows, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Mood. It's spelled mud, M-U-D, with a little umlaut over the U.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yes, yeah. Anyway, great company. They did this fantastic job of getting a sense of what our visual brand is, and then they designed this background. So yeah, some people, when they see me, they'll go, "Oh, is that some kind of electronic background?" And we dislike the electronic backgrounds.
Yeah, I think I know. Yeah, the virtual backgrounds. Yeah, the virtual.
Yes, thank you. The virtual backgrounds, we do not like them. They turn your hands into
Nobody
gloves
does.
and your
Nobody
hair
likes them.
afro, and yeah, it's problematic in so many ways. And we don't like the blurred background either. It's a little better. Um, and your background is great. I love how you set up your background.
Oh, thank you.
Some
It's my
people.
living room. It's literally real. Like everything in the, what can you see in the video? You can see, oh, Pete, this, I'm trying to look at my video. This box up here, people,
uh,
okay, everybody watching in the video, haha, there's no video. It's an audio podcast. This box up here contains a small selection of HO scale model railroads. My father and I built a model railroad in
mm,
our garage, like 30 by 50, scratch built. I mean, this thing was enormous and it was lit and the trains are all remote. I mean, like, professional model railroad. We worked on it for like 30 years. And eventually my father passed away and we had to sell the house. And I was like, I am not trying to move this railroad. So that, like, all that stuff over like there, and then there's things. And the only thing that I have hacked in this space is if I tip my glasses, you can see there's some lights up above my monitor. I have
ah,
some particular lights up there.
mhm.
Sorry, Craig tells the irrelevant anecdote about, so it's an audio podcast and Pete and I are talking about all now. I am completely aware, people, if there's one, hi mom, somebody listening, the show that I'm talking about building, my show, is audio. Why are we talking about video so much? Because one obvious question to ask you, oh, by the way, Pete actually is an audio podcaster too. It's just we're talking about video. And
Mm.
I asked Peter, sorry, what your favorite, I asked podcast, and he told me about a show that he likes to listen to. And he's clearly got what I would say a podcaster's ear.
Mm.
And one obvious question to ask would be what, after you've done video logging, and I really think there's a lot of wisdom in like, I think I will challenge myself by going into a medium that I haven't been in before. And I'm just going to jump in the pool and I'm going to do the thing and we're going to refine it. A lot of wisdom there.
Mhm.
But has it changed how you listen to? And I don't mean how, like while mowing or doing the dishes. I mean like how, like what you're listening for, what you tolerate, what you'd like, what you enjoy. Has what you've done in the video space changed how you listen to podcasts at all?
Oh, interesting question. I don't think so. So one thing about me is I am not like the most aesthetically oriented person in the world. So partner Dean and team member Troy both have way more experience behind the camera than I do, and they're both far more finicky than I am in terms of like setting up a shot and making sure that things are just right. And so I'm the kind of person who, when I listen to a podcast and if I notice a dog barking in the background or a police car passing by on the street, I I'll notice it, but uh, I won't mark it down as a negative.
Minus two. Yeah.
It's so not a problem for me. And we were before we started recording, we were talking about Seth Godin's podcast Akimbo, and I remember on one of his he talked about um, uh, when COVID hit, he started recording his podcast from his closet because that was the right acoustics. And I was like, that's amazing. And I really don't think I would have noticed if he didn't.
Hmm.
you know, so take it for whatever it's worth to you. I listen to the words coming out of people's mouths. I don't really listen to the sound quality. You've got obviously a fantastic setup, and I don't know if anybody's said this to you before, but your voice is like butter. I love how you sound
It's embarrassing. I get
in
it all
front
the
of.
time. Uh, I've said this a million times on the show. Thanks, mom. That's why my voice sounds like, and my dad, that's why my voice sounds like it does. I just happen to be a giant Italian with a humongous barrel chest. So, but I will say there are two tricks that I will suggest people consider. One is try different microphones. You record yourself, listen back, and see what you like. I had a friend who I really didn't know the guy as a musician. It turned out, I mean, I knew he played bass guitar, but this guy's like a raging musician with his own home studio that he was professional work. And when I said, I want to start podcasting, what microphone should I get? Right? Everybody's favorite question. He basically said, get this one. It's a Shure SM58. It's a classic rock and roll mic. And he said, start with that. It's not even, it's $100. It's not even expensive. I was like, okay. I mean, but it's like the person that I asked happened to know the best answer for my voice. I didn't realize, and I asked him later. He's like, oh yeah, it's specifically, that's a good one for you. So try different mics. Try, just because you spent $40 on one doesn't mean you have the best one for your voice. Find one that you like better. The other thing is I stand. I think you're standing too. If you're not standing, you're faking it really well. I tell everybody, try standing. The first couple times you do it, it's really hard. I think it's probably easier to do video standing too, would be my guess.
Yep.
But standing up opens your diaphragm, tends to give you a little more space. So your voice goes down on your torso a little more.
Yeah, I
But thank you.
totally endorse standing while you talk. That's one of the things that I try to get my clients to do, because I think you just have more energy, and the people that you're talking to can see it and hear it and feel it as a result.
I kind of imagine from what I've watched a couple of as we mentioned before, I watched a couple of the small vlog videos, and I know some of who your customers would be, like not particular people, but like I can just picture, I came in with the rolled up architecture plans, and then we roll it out, and then Bob's like, all right, here's the thing. I imagine people standing when I imagine them doing presentations. And I'm just thinking that for people who are podcasting, people like who are listening, the chance to, well, next time you go to track one of your intros, record one of your intros, try standing up. I mean, it then it's like, oh, well, my desk is too low. And then everything else is kind of, oh, that's in the way, or how am I going to do this? And there are lots of tips. One tip is a music stand. People get the old style high school music stand with a little shock that goes up and down. Just pull that up in front of you. You can hold your whole computer on there. But try standing up, try recording it differently, try using a different microphone, make little changes and see what you get.
I think that's fantastic advice.
And it's the Craig Show. You don't need more Craig on the internet. It's supposed to be the Pete Show. So I don't like to I really avoid putting people on the spot because it doesn't ever work out well. But what I want to say is, what happened to your audio podcast?
Okay. So yeah, Craig and I met because I had an aspiration for an audio blog, and I'm still sorry. I just called it an audio blog. That's a bizarre term.
No,
Yeah,
you
I
can
had an
call it anything you
aspiration
want. I don't
for
want
a
to make you feel weird
podcast,
about language.
and the aspiration is still there. The idea is to interview folks who feel like they're up to something, making a difference out there, because A, I'm a big fan of that, and B, I think my clients are all about that. It's both a heart project and I believe a business supportive project. So what happened to it? It got put on pause because, I don't know, co-running a business is a lot to do, and when I
And we don't have
told
cloning yet. Yes.
yeah, when I told my partner about the podcast, he was like, great, if you can squeeze it in while you're doing everything else that you need to do, go right ahead, and I was like, great. And I just haven't found a way to squeeze it in yet.
There's
He pointed
I,
out recently I come up with a lot of good ideas, but there's still only 24 hours in a day.
and good idea. I always say good idea is not enough. I think I have a lot of great ideas. That doesn't mean that I should try and execute all of them.
Yeah.
A lot of times for me, the most important part is, okay, that's great. That's nice. Write it down, digitally, paper, something, get out of your head. And then I sometimes feel like I should make an inverse tickler file, where things have dates on it. And then every month the stuff on the end gets thrown out. Because if I don't remember it, it wasn't that great.
Yeah. Gotta say though, the way that we've structured the vlogs though have been phenomenally efficient in a way that I um, did not anticipate. So when we started doing the vlogs, Dean was saying, we're going to need to do one shot wonders. And I was like, well, you can do that.
That's true.
It
That's a
felt
high
like
bar you got there.
it felt like a lot of pressure to me. And he thinks faster than I do. I I think at my own pace. He's just wired differently, and he's kind of a fascinating guy. And he's one thing about his natural wiring is he figures things out as he goes, and he sounds interesting as he does, and it doesn't really sound like he's figuring things out.
Mm.
It just comes out in this sequential way that makes a ton of sense, and it's very engaging, and it's like, how the heck do you do that? I My wiring is very different. And very often I kind of need to pause and figure out where I am, and uh, uh, kind of need to sort of take stock of where I am and figure out how to proceed. But what we've done over the years um, is, well, two things. We found a guy to edit, and we also discovered this great and simple, easy way to edit, especially now that cameras are so dang high def. Basically, whenever I interrupt myself, I clap to
Make a
let the
mark.
editor know, okay, I want you to, I'm talking to you now, Mr. Editor, and I'm telling you what I want you to do. Cut the thing that I just said, starting at blah blah blah, and then when I'm done talking to him, I'll clap again, and then I'll resume. And he cuts out this stuff that I want him to cut out, and instead of it being like a jump cut, where or a a flash cut, which kind of looks cheesy, what he does is he shifts from a normal ratio to a slightly zoomed in ratio.
Mm.
So it's it looks it still looks good. It looks smooth, it sounds smooth, and I think most people aren't going, "Oh, Pete just screwed up."
Yeah, smartass. Let me see you talk for 5 minutes without misspeaking.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
Video. Okay, so I was gonna say I'm afraid of video. I'm not afraid of video, but I'm afraid of the amount of work that I would make for myself. Because
Yeah,
sometimes people say, "Why?" All I have to do is when I set this room up, the audio platform we're using, I could have just pushed a button that said we're recording video too, and then I'd have a video show.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I bridle at, so I think one person like a host on mic for video, I think it works because I'm looking at Pete's talking, this I'm looking over my shoulder, he's clearly talking to me, right? So this makes sense. But when you have two people, when I try to do two guests on a conversation, where do I put the people?
Mm.
Because I don't know about anybody else, but every time I've been the third wheel in a conversation, I get the 45-degree side shot of two people who are talking to each other, and I'm watching the ping pongs,
Mm.
but and that's, and film even does that. They all know when you're cutting back and forth, not even using the cough button. Cut to the left to look at Sally, cut to the right to look at Harry. You go back and forth and you don't cross that line, or you cross the line when you want to show a major change in tone. And I think that video would be really distracting for people. Like two people looking like, oh, what's the thing? And then I don't know. I can't watch video of two people talking to each other when they're both looking at me. I'm like, stop looking at me. You're not looking at each other.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But
Um,
now I'm off in the weeds about my personal preferences of video.
so in the interim, so during the time period that I was thinking about doing a this interview podcast, and by the way, I've been going back and forth as to whether it should truly be audio or if it should also be
Video.
video. And the main argument for video is because we're all about presence. It's like, it seems like we should be in front of the camera.
Hmm.
you
But what
know?
about your guest? What if your guest is like, oh, I'm kind of shy. I don't want to. But anyway, sorry, keep
Right.
going.
So anyway, during this interim, my team member Troy started interviewing folks and started kind of adding to the vlog that we put out, and he does a really good job. And I'm like, I started watching it. I'm like, boy, that's actually kind of the format that I had in mind in a way. So I think we have the I think we have the basics in place. I should just bite the bullet and ask somebody, "Hey, can I interview you?" and give it a shot. You know, and part of the reason I bring it up is he does do it exactly the way that you
Yeah, I
described
did see one in the
describing
feed.
me
Yeah.
nuts. So he's talking
But
his
it's only me. Everybody
he,
else in the world apparently doesn't have a problem with it. Don't do it my way just because I think it's my like it's just my opinion about that. A lot of people do side by side because I mean, the other way to do it is the two men between ferns, modality where there's two people. But even then, they have to put their chairs like on slight angles and they kind of sit sideways at each other, and
yeah,
and because you
yeah.
have but then there's five cameras and two guys with mics, and now it's a production.
Yeah, there's a guy out there named Lex Friedman who does these really, really great interviews, and they're like multiple hours long. He's got a YouTube channel, and he does them. I think, I think he's got to do it virtually. He and his interviewees are not in the same place,
Mm.
but yeah, he gets the cameras set up the way that you're describing, where he's at a 45-degree angle pointed in one direction, and the person he's talking to is a 45-degree angle pointed in the opposite direction.
Ooh,
So
that's neat.
it cuts back and forth, and it feels more natural.
Yeah. When you see it done, when you see it done well, you're like, oh, you have just wrecked it for me. But I'm going to walk back a little bit and say, like you were saying about podcasts, you can listen through. You can still, even if Craig doesn't like the way the video is laid out, it's like, well, this content is so good, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
So
Content is
yeah,
king in my mind.
definitely, and there are. I really think the listening audience for podcasts as well as video is very bimodal. There's a group of people who listen to everything, like they listen to all my episodes. They listen to all of, Akimba, listen to all of your video logs. And then there are people who only ever watch one because
Mm-hmm.
they were there for the guest
Mm,
or they were
sure.
there for the topic that you covered. So they're searching, they find the thing, they listen to your comments about how to give advice part two, and they watch 5 minutes of video and then they go away. They don't remember who was even talking. And I actually think most of the people who hear my voice showed up because they wanted to hear the guest. So despite the fact that I yammer constantly, I try to keep that in mind. Like, this is about Pete. Talk as much as I need to get Pete to say more, which turns out to be quite a lot. So, what are your final thoughts on? I don't know if we should challenge people to try and do some video, or if we should
Hmm.
challenge people to.
I think we should challenge people to try it. And yeah, let me throw out a couple of things related to this. Um, so you and I were in a class that Seth Godin sort of taught, virtually taught. uh, well, let me put it this way: he showed up every now and then, and allowed us to ask him questions. And I was able to ask him, "Hey, I'm considering doing a video podcast instead of audio. What do you think about that?" And he said, "Sure. Just know that the nice thing about audio is you're limiting the number of things that your audience can judge you on. With video, you are adding way more things your audience
Mm.
can judge you on." And I think it's very true, and that's part of the reason why I like my background. I'm controlling some of the stuff that I can control, and I do think there is something about the challenge of presenting to a camera that a lot of folks can benefit from practicing. It's very much like if you if you challenge yourself at work to participate more in your meetings on a regular basis, if you challenge yourself to say, okay, I'm going to have something constructive to say in every meeting I participate in for the next month, if you do that, you will be better at that, and you will be more visible at work, and people will start to recognize you for the contributions you're making. Will you bat 1,000? Almost certainly not. So there is a risk to it. And I, uh, in my own, uh, in my own experience, my initial vlogs were much worse than my current vlogs. I
I'll
have,
jump on that sword. My first episodes are horrible.
I, yeah, um, I, it's something that I recommend challenging yourself about if your presence is something you want to get better at. Presence is there's a visual component to it. It's certainly not all visual. There's a lot about your presence that shows up in just your voice and in the words coming out of your mouth. But there is a substantial part of what your face is saying that you aren't consciously aware of, what your posture is saying, how you gesture when you don't gesture. There's lots of stuff, yes, that people can judge you on, and the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. Not necessarily because you're receiving any feedback from anybody else, but it's just like the more you do anything, the better you get at it. You can't help but start to recognize the nuances that you had no idea about before you started doing it. And consciously or otherwise, you're picking up on those nuances, and you are making decisions about those nuances and getting better over time.
Terrific. I'm not a video guy, so I don't know that I have anything to contribute. I think that's, I'm thinking, oh, I really should be doing some videos. What's Pete's telling me here?
Do it.
Thanks.
Do it, Craig.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, invite me on your show. There you go. Right back at you.
Oh,
all right.
okay.
Actually, I tell people all the time.
My first.
I tell people all the time, invite me on your show, and if you throw it on the cutting room floor, I won't be upset. I'm more than happy to be the guinea pig. That's a lot of what we did inside that course you're talking about was the coaches showed up to try and test on us, whatever. Anyway, I really appreciate your taking the time. I know when I reached out to you first, I was like a little more than a year ago, there was kind of some like, me, you want to talk to me? I'm like, yes, you want to talk to you. I think that you're doing things in video that I know I haven't done. And that I think maybe more people should explore. So I'll just leave it at that and say thanks for taking the time, Pete. It was a pleasure to get a chance to talk to you again and to record.
Well, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much. And for those of you out there listening, if you want to learn anything more about me or Sage Presence, please check out our website. It's at sagepresence.com. And if you'd like to send me a message, there's a contact page on that website, and I would love to hear from you.